Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies You Missed Podcast, episode 96. Vee, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, John, and happy for this very special episode.
Me too. I'm excited to get into this reviewer request episode, but before we do that, a little bit about us. For those of you that have not joined us for the last 95 episodes, welcome to Movies You Missed Podcast. We are two film industry veterans with 25 years of experience between both of us in the stunt world, production world, post-production world, etc., etc. We are here to discuss movies without spoiling them. We do not spoil a single movie here. But before we jump into this week's picks, we'd like to discuss the movies that we did see in theaters or on streaming this week.
Unfortunately, I didn't make it to the theaters this week or watch any new movies, so the floor is yours.
Oh.
Yeah.
Darn. Well, then I will take it away. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because I went into this movie, I would say 99.8% blind. I knew the time period that it was set, and that was it. I'm talking about a movie called Out of Darkness. This is a badass horror/survival movie set during the Stone Age, 45,000 years ago.
Whoa.
This movie's, directed by Andrew Cumming, written by Ruth Greenberg, Andrew Cumming as well, and Oliver Kassman. The movie stars Chuku Modu, please forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Sophia Oakley-Green, Kit Young, Lola Evans, Luna Mwezi, Rosebud Malarkey, and Tyrell Malanga. That's the cast. This movie is also in a different language, so it was subtitles, so if you don't have a problem reading subtitles, check it out. Awesome fucking movie. Had some really good, scary moments, and just a really fascinating story. And again, I went in completely almost blind, and after posting the reel yesterday, had very brief chats back with Sophia Oakley-Green and Chuku Modu over social media, which was awesome. So congrats to everybody involved in this movie, including my friend Laura Radford, who was the stills photographer on this movie, which I did not know about until yesterday. So very, very cool movie. Check it out. I don't know how long it'll be in theaters. It came out February 9th, I believe, in the States, so we'll see how it does, but it's already made $1 million worldwide.
Nice.
Hopefully it'll make more. Yeah, but even if you watch it on streaming, definitely a movie to check out. It's already on my you cannot miss this movie list of 2024.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, very, very pleasantly surprised. I walked out of there just completely jazzed. And this movie is called Out of Darkness.
All right, well, I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, I think you'd like it too. A very badass female lead kicking ass in this movie.
Oh, yes, definitely. Right up my alley.
Hell yeah. Well, as we've always said here at Movies You Miss Podcast, please do keep theaters alive. Please do keep going to the movies and keep physical media alive. Keep renting from Redbox, and hopefully one day Blockbuster Video will make a resurgence.
I thought you were going to say Best Buy will bring back physical media sales.
Well, that too, indeed. Best Buy, Circuit City, if you don't remember Circuit City.
That's a callback.
It really is, indeed. A lot of physical media has been falling away from existence, and both V and I are very adamant about keeping those alive.
Also, because if we don't collect physical media, it's going to give all of the power to the streaming services, and we don't want to do that. They keep raising their prices.
Exactly, and with streaming services, you don't get the special features, you don't get the deleted scenes, you don't get the alternate endings, you don't get this, you don't get that. So if you have been listening for the last 95 episodes, you know what we're talking about.
My father is a big physical media collector as well, so he's right there with you.
Oh, fantastic. I wonder if he's beaten me on the number of DVD, Blu-rays, VHS, and 4K copies.
He has an entire room of DVDs. I think you guys are neck and neck, honestly.
Oh, well, wonderful. I gotta come peruse his collection then.
Yeah.
This is the first I'm hearing of this 96 episodes later. So fantastic. I appreciate it. But since this is the 96th episode, V, I believe you start us off with your pick, although not necessarily your pick, because this is the reviewer-requested episode. So this comes to us from Whiskey by the Fire. Steve, we're jumping into one of your picks this week, my friend.
And for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is our second reviewer-requested episode. We hold contests for those of you who write us reviews on the Apple Podcasts app, and by doing so, you'll be entered to win a reviewer request episode in the future, because we will continue to be doing these.
Oh, hell yeah.
And for this one, Steve was one of our winners. I've really enjoyed interacting with him on Instagram over the last year and a half, so really excited to dive into his pick. First and foremost, thank you so much, Steve, for not only your participation and your review, but also these suggestions. We were really excited by all of them.
Oh, yeah.
The 6 movies that Steve sent us to choose from. First is a movie called The Way.
Yes.
Then Collateral, the awesome Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise movie that's actually on our list in the future because we love it so much, so it's coming.
Hell yeah, directed by Michael Mann.
That's right. The American, starring George Clooney.
Oh, yeah.
Day of the Jackal from 1973, which is the original, which is the good one. The remake with Bruce Willis and Richard Gere's horrendous Irish accent is something I've subjected myself to several times.
No kidding. I did not know that was actually a remake of The Jackal from the late 90s. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's a fun movie. I've seen it multiple times. But it is not as good, obviously, as the original. Jack Black, though, his scenes in the remake are very fun.
Interesting.
And then the last 2 from Steve are We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon and Secondhand Lions starring Haley Joel Osment, Michael Caine, and Robert Duvall, which we're both fans of.
That is a very good movie indeed. I remember really liking that one.
Yeah, and so great list, Steve. Thank you so much. And I actually ended up picking a movie that both John and I hadn't seen before, but we really had wanted to for quite some time. So I picked The Way. It's from 2010, directed and written by Emilio Estevez, starring Martin Sheen, his father in real life. The Way opens up introducing the audience to a man named Tom Avery, played by Martin Sheen. He's an optometrist in Southern California and seems very well established. A very traditional guy in a lot of ways. He worked hard, he opened up his own practice, he was married, he had a son. Unfortunately, we find out pretty quickly that his wife had died the previous year. And it shows Tom driving his son Daniel to the airport. Daniel has unfortunately dropped out of his PhD program from UC Berkeley and has decided to travel the world. He really thinks that world experience is going to help him out with his education over a PhD. And being a more traditional guy, Tom is really against this, and it's very quickly obvious to us that he and his son have a bit of a contentious relationship, and it's only gotten worse since his wife, Daniel's mother, has died. And while they're in the car on the way to the airport, Tom tries to lecture him a little bit, and Daniel's just really not about it and just says,
"We agreed that if I let you take me to the airport, you wouldn't lecture me about how I'm ruining my life."
I lied. You know, most people don't have the luxury of just picking up and leaving it all behind, Daniel.
Well, I'm not most people. If I don't have your blessing, that's fine. But don't judge this. Don't judge me.
My life here might not seem like much to you, but it's the life I choose.
You don't choose a life, Dad. You live one.
As he drops him off at the airport, they leave on not the greatest terms, and Tom goes back to his life expecting to hear from Daniel soon. But unfortunately, a few days later, Tom is playing golf with a bunch of buddies and gets a call from a French policeman saying that there's been an accident and his son Daniel has died.
I've been on that golf course.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Which golf course is it?
It's up off the 101 near Ventura.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I know exactly where that is then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this means that Tom has to go to Europe and identify his son's body. Of course, the worst phone call you could ever get as a parent, I'm sure. As Tom goes to this small French town and speaks to the police, they talk to him about what his son was doing. It turns out Daniel was trying to walk the Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage that has been a route for over 1,000 years. And these routes all end in one small town in Spain, at a church where it's said that the remains of the Apostle John are buried.
Right.
Hey, look, John.
Hey,
it's John.
Welcome back to Movies and Movies Podcast.
Of course, Tom is really distraught and he has to go through his son's things. And that night at the hotel room, he's unpacking his son's entire backpacking bag and all of his gear and his headlamp and everything involved in hiking the Camino, which is supposed to take over 30 days. Tom gets inspired and tells the policeman that he wants his son cremated and that they are going to be walking the Camino together. Tom has now decided to completely upend his life because it does take 30 days to walk the Camino, and and he calls his receptionist and says, hey, cancel all my appointments for the next month, and does something really drastic and decides to honor his son and walk this Camino.
Very much on the whim decision.
It is. The policeman is certainly wary of this decision. Hey, how old are you? Have you trained at all for anything like this? The
Right.
Camino is quite hard, and he's cautious. He's not shooting him down outright. He's a very, very nice guy. He's one of my favorite characters in the whole movie, Captain Henry. I really love this guy. And
Oh, yeah.
he does help Tom a lot and gives him some tips on what to expect and what to do, and shows him the start of the Camino the next day after his son's cremated. And so begins this adventure and journey of self-discovery and realization and change for Tom. And that is because on this journey, not only does he meet a whole host of different characters, but he also reflects back a lot on his relationship with his son Daniel and what he wished he had done differently and what his life is like, and he has to push himself. There are several challenges, of course, that he meets along the way. At one point, his backpack is stolen, which includes his son's ashes, and
that moment was so fucked.
Yeah, and he has to go after it, and it's intense, and of course, he doesn't speak any other languages, and he's in France and then Spain, so that presents another challenge, and it's just this really beautiful movie about who you are and how you want to live life, and I was completely inspired by it.
That's fantastic. I will agree with you. I was very inspired by it, especially when he decides to go on this pilgrimage after everything that he kind of went through to get to where he's got to identify his son's body. I don't have a son. I don't have a child, but I do have a sister and parents and my wife included, and if I had to identify them, that would be very traumatic, very intense, and however, I do like the fact that he embraced the opportunity to continue on with life and get inspired to take this trek, which was hundreds of miles, which you start in France and then you end in Spain. I have been to several different countries throughout Europe, and this movie really put me in the shoelaces, if you will, of not only Martin Sheen's character, but everybody else's character that was walking this trek, this pilgrimage. And I really want to do this now. Very rarely does a movie inspire me to the point where I'm like, I'm going to do that. But I'm going to tell you right now, before I'm 50, I'm going to fucking do this shit.
Yes, I'm right there with you.
Oh, great, because you are the one I wanted to do it with.
Oh, thank you. I'm very
And maybe
flattered.
Steve can join us because it was his pick. Steve, you, me, and V, we're going to do this shit in the next 10 years.
Sounds good to me. Right after the movie finished, I went on Google and started looking for guidebooks of the Camino.
All I did was Google that shit while I watched the movie. I paused this movie several times because I was like, okay. Now, you watch movies like this and you watch documentaries, then it's like, okay, did they really do this? Did they really go that far? And yes, this is an actual pilgrimage, and you end up in small villages, you break bread, you drink wine, you have meals with all these different people that are expecting you. That's one thing that really just completely grabbed me about this movie.
The sense of community in this movie was so beautiful.
There it is. Yes, the sense of community. Thank you. That was the right words I was looking for.
Nice. Well, I'm glad we both felt that. And with that community, that means that Tom meets a whole host of different people on this trek, 3 of which actually kind of glue on to him and decide to tag along for the rest of the walk.
A little bit, yeah.
He just lost his son. He is a bit bitter and crotchety, rightly so. And he's very unwelcoming, but these people just continue to walk alongside of him. And the arc and just the developing relationships with everyone in this movie is also really beautiful to see. And I love the comedic relief from Jost, because otherwise this movie would just be really heavy and kind of depressing, which rightly so. But
absolutely,
having Jack and Jost along with him was so fun. And Jost is this man from Amsterdam who says he's walking the Camino because he's trying to lose weight, but all he does is continue to taste and try all of the wonderful food in France and Spain, which of course he does. I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm totally with Yost on this one. I'm with everybody, really.
Yeah, I love Yost's line in this movie when they're at the top of this little ridge and they pause for a minute and bicycles ride by and he goes, "Wait a minute, you could do this on a bike? What are we doing?"
That was so good. But at the same time, when that happened, I was like, I would actually be totally fine with being on my feet.
Oh, yes, I definitely want to walk it for sure.
Yeah.
And Jack is an Irish writer who has writer's block, and he's trying to walk the Camino to pick up everyone's stories and hopefully inspire him to start writing again. And he's a bit of a nut, and they find him in a field walking in circles, being all frustrated because he still hasn't written anything. And he's lovely too. And then they also pick up Sarah, who's a Canadian who is much darker and much angrier. And it turns out she has a very sad backstory. And you start to really empathize with her later on in the movie, because when you're first introduced to her, man, I immediately disliked her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that might be one of my biggest issues with the movie, is that it took too long to empathize with her. I kind of wanted to empathize with her a little earlier, because she really was just such a dick to
really
Martin
was.
Sheen right away. And you know, I get it. You know, you want to add drama, and you want to add this whole, you know, difference
Tension.
to these characters that are meeting each other along the way. Like, oh, so what are you doing? And I completely understand the humanity of that, because I'll be honest, I look at people in certain situations and I'm like, oh, well, what the fuck are you doing here?
Right.
Like, I'm here for my own situation, but why the hell are you here? You want internet fame? You want TikTok fame? You want Instagram fame? Blah, 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 right? So that's kind of what I took with her, and I completely empathize with that. But I felt like it took a little bit too long to get to why she was the way she was. But when we did find out, it was one of those moments, again, in this movie that brought me back down to earth. And I was like, well, son of a fucking bitch. Like, she's actually a complete human being, and she's dealing with what has happened with her in her life. And I liked that.
And all of the hosts along the way are so fun to be introduced to as well. I loved the guy.
Oh, hell yeah.
A little bit early on, he was an older man, and the next morning, Tom wakes up and he looks out his window and he sees the host outside kind of playing with some laundry, and he's spinning around, and he notices that Tom's watching him.
Yes.
I love that scene, and he says,
I wanted to be a bullfighter. My father wanted me to be a lawyer. I became neither.
That was so great. Yeah.
There's so much humanity in this film, and I like that it's awkward, just like life is, right? And it's difficult, and there's challenges, and you screw up, and there's embarrassment, and it's uncomfortable, and it just felt very genuine to me and very human. And I liked that a lot of these characters and a lot of things they did weren't perfect, and it felt like real life.
I completely agree. I don't want to say this was necessarily documentarian-style filmmaking, but to an extent.
It definitely had that vibe.
It did have that vibe. Yeah, you know, you meet Yost, you meet the gentleman from Ireland, you meet Sarah, walking along with Tom through this journey. I definitely understand why he doesn't necessarily want to make a relationship with any of these people.
Yeah, he doesn't want
wants
friends.
to just... He wants to get it done, and it was something that he decided to do on a whim. And, you know, that's life, right? You know, like, oh, okay, this is something that's inspiring. My son wanted to do this. I'm going to jump in and take him along with me and leave me alone. And, you know, there's a lot of dialogue alluding to the fact that he wants to be left alone. But at the same time, just like any other human being, as much as you want to be left alone, you wouldn't mind the company.
That is such a perfect way to say it. And I think a good example of how Tom feels at the beginning is this.
Buen camino, fellow pilgrim.
Oi, buen camino. My name is Joost. I'm from Amsterdam.
Dutch, huh? Got any drugs?
Oh, I love this girl.
It wears off quick, I promise.
You know each other?
Sort of.
What are you looking to score?
Oh, something for sleep. I've had trouble sleeping for the past, I don't know, a couple of years.
You folks mind doing this drug deal while we walk?
I got some Ambien. Or something stronger, if that's your pleasure.
I love this guy.
It wears off quick, I promise.
And the development of these friendships along the way are really fun to watch. And a little bit later on in the movie, I really love it when everywhere they stay is like kind of like a hostel. You know, there's a lot of beds in one room. They get fed community style. And they stop at one and they're like, are we sure this is an official hostel? Because the guy is a little bit weird.
Right.
And the host goes upstairs for a while, and they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And
I love that
Tom
moment.
moves to go upstairs, and he's like, you guys aren't coming with me? What are you, 5? And they go,
yes.
no, we're just scared.
we're just, yeah. And they're like, you know what, fuck it, I guess we'll go with you. No, I like that moment completely. And that's another reason why this movie is actually inspiring, is because, like, who are you going to meet along the way in the villages that are quote-unquote rest stops?
And so that's The Way, a first watch for both of us. And
Yes.
And I loved how you could build empathy for each character, and it really comes down to everyone is just trying to navigate through life.
That's exactly what I took from it. You know, I resonated with a few of these characters. It really was an inspiring tale. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'd watch this every couple years when I want to get inspired again.
For sure. And every couple years movie is exactly what The Way is.
Yeah. And so, as I said, Martin Sheen is the star of this movie, playing Tom Avery. Do you know that he has 262 credits?
Well, I am a part of one of those 262 credits.
Really?
Yes, I was the first assistant director on a Funny or Die sequence that he was the lead actor in. That was a fantastic day in West Hollywood many years ago on the Formosa Santa Monica Boulevard lot, which housed the I Love Lucy stages many, many, many years ago. But he was the lead in an NRA sketch that we had a lot of fun shooting over. Yes, it was a blast and a half.
Yes. That's right. Oh, I'm so glad. And you said he was super cool, right?
Martin Sheen was a badass motherfucker, and I'm not using that word lightly. All he did was discuss Apocalypse Now and a couple other movies that he did, but mostly Apocalypse Now. I really wish that I would have known that it was Martin Sheen, because I would have brought my 4K edition of Apocalypse Now to set to have him sign. But I was told by the producer that it was Michael Sheen, so I didn't bring anything with me, thinking that, nothing against Michael Sheen. I love
I'm sorry you didn't
Underworld.
You wouldn't have brought your Underworld DVD, because I sure
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I love Underworld, but it was one of those things like, oh, Michael Sheen, okay, man, you know, I like it. Yeah, I like the guy. But yeah, I showed up and I read the call sheet and it was Martin Sheen, and I was like, son of a bitch. But yeah, he was a blast, and I got to assistant direct him for about 6 hours. We had nothing but fun and laughs. I will post the photo of me and him at the end of the day. He was awesome. So definitely a treat for me. Absolutely.
Legendary. I love it.
Yes.
And you had said his grandson was his assistant, right?
That's right. Yes. His grandson, Taylor, I believe Emilio Estevez's son, actually. So this is all coming full circle at this point.
It is. And we're going to put a pin in that for a second, because that's going to come back in a minute.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah. And as you said, he's in Apocalypse Now. He has been in one movie that we discussed before. In episode 84, he's in The American President.
Yes.
He's great in that movie.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's
always.
You're right. You're absolutely right. He is always fantastic. He's also in the original Firestarter, Wall Street, JFK. He makes an appearance in his son's movie, Hot Shots Part 2. He's in Gettysburg, Catch Me If You Can, and of course, The West Wing.
Yes.
He's great in Grace and Frankie, but I think my two favorite roles of his, other than The American President, are The Departed.
Oh, my God. Hell yes.
And I think he does a really good job in The Amazing Spider-Man as Uncle Ben.
I still have not seen The Amazing Spider-Man, but I will tell you what I love. And I think just about every human being that loves crime drama loves The Departed.
Yes.
He is so good in The Departed.
Absolutely. I think he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't that have been awesome?
Yeah.
It would have been him against Mark Wahlberg.
Which is perfect, because they were partners in the movie.
Indeed they were.
And then Yorick von Wageningen, my apologies if I mispronounced that, he plays Jost.
Oh yeah.
I am so glad I did not make the connection on where I'd seen him before while watching this movie, because it would have been completely ruined for me.
Really?
He's the caseworker in David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
No fucking way. Never saw it.
Oh, well, he is a horrific predator in that movie.
Oh, really?
And I'm so glad I didn't make the connection while watching The Way. So I would have been very traumatized. He plays the exact opposite of that role in The Way, and it made me realize he's a really good actor.
Fuck yeah. And nothing against David Fincher's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I just saw the original Swedish version and thought that was superior and didn't bother.
Fair. Yorick is also in the really great Vin Diesel movie called The Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh, hell yeah.
He's also in a Clive Owen, Angelina Jolie movie, Beyond Borders.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've actually wanted to see that one. I never have.
You need to because Clive Owen's one of your favorite actors.
He is indeed, but is it a good movie?
It's a good, C+
Okay,
movie.
so I won't probably watch it then.
No, I
No,
mean...
I likely will. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
okay.
I love me some Owen.
Yeah. It's one where, it's a Saturday afternoon film.
Okay.
And then Deborah Kerr Unger plays Sarah.
Yes.
I recognize her from not only The Hurricane, the Denzel Washington movie.
Right.
She plays Lisa, one of the Innocence Project's lawyers.
Yes.
And then she's also in Payback, a really great, gritty Mel Gibson revenge movie that I love.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She
Hell
plays
yeah.
Mrs. Porter, Mel Gibson's wife in that movie. And then James Nesbitt plays Jack, who rounds out the crew that's walking the Camino.
Yes.
He appeared in episode 17 because he plays the dad in Millions.
Hell yeah.
He's also in a great movie, Waking Ned Divine.
Yes.
And he's in all 3 of the Hobbit movies because he plays Beaufort.
No shit. I
Yeah.
still have not seen those
They
movies.
are not worth watching.
He's also in a movie from a director that a lot of people do not like to mention. He is in Match Point, directed by Woody Allen.
Which is why I didn't mention it.
Oh, well, there you go.
Emilio Estevez wrote and directed this film and also stars as Daniel in the movie The Son.
Right.
I've known him since I was 8 or 9 years old because I loved the Mighty Ducks movies when I was growing up.
Hell yes.
He's also in The Breakfast Club, which is a movie I do not like.
I've never seen it.
He's good. Don't watch it. He's in
Okay.
Stakeout with Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh.
Young Guns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first Mission Impossible movie.
Oh, my gosh. He goes out so fucked in that movie.
Oh, man. Trauma from the very first time I watched that movie in the 90s.
It is still, I'm almost 40, short from 40, over 30, but that is one of the most fucked kills
Yes, in the whole
in
franchise.
any movie.
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
I turn away to this day now.
Absolutely. I
Cringe.
close my eyes. I know it's happening. The crunch that they add is just,
so
that's
brutal.
enough. That's enough.
So unnecessary. And then, of course, he's in my favorite sci-fi guilty pleasure movie, Free Jack.
Oh, that's on your list for later on.
It is.
Fantastic.
He hasn't directed much. He did direct a couple episodes of the show Numbers. And
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and a movie called Bobby, which is about Robert F. Kennedy, starring Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Really? He directed Bobby? I actually did not know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then the last guy I want to talk about is Chicky Carriou. My apologies, but I tried. He plays Captain Henry. He's in one of your favorite action movies, Bad Boys.
Oh, really?
He's the bad guy, Fauché.
Oh, hell yeah. He's the cop in this movie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love him. He's awesome.
He plays a Russian in the movie GoldenEye, which is a great James Bond film. He's
Yes.
Mishkin. Yeah. And then he plays a Frenchman in Mel Gibson's The Patriot.
Oh.
Remember, he's the head French guy, and they keep trying to...
I totally remember. Especially the end of The Patriot.
When he's like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die well-dressed.
Yes. And then Mel Gibson's like, Viva France. And he's like, Viva Liberty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I totally
Exactly.
remember that.
Yeah. So that's the cast, and as I said, this movie came out in 2010. It had a budget of $20 million. I was kind of shocked by that.
20 mil?
I was shocked by that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know how.
How did Emilio Estevez garner that kind of funding?
And I really don't understand it because it's said that this was filmed with a very small crew of only 50 people and a couple of cameras. They didn't have any trailers, and Emilio even joked that he didn't have a director's chair. It was shot.
Really?
Yeah, it was shot in 40 days. How did this cost
40 days?
$500,000 a day?
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Maybe this was actually like one of those documentary type Hollywood movies where you know what? I don't know. I'm not even going to try and guess.
I don't know.
I guess more power to him. Wow, $20 million?
I know.
That's intense.
I know. I agree.
I wonder if like 17 million went to Martin Sheen and the rest of it went to everybody else.
I don't know, but
Locations
I
and
guess staying
insurance.
I guess staying in Spain for a month costs a lot of money. I don't know. I don't know.
My God.
But it was a very independent film. They didn't have any budget for marketing. It only made $5 million in the US and $13 million worldwide.
Damn.
It made $7 million in DVD sales, and it has become quite popular. And Emilio still actually goes and does talks on this movie and screens it for people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And while directing, Emilio actually worked every day dressed as Daniel so he could just jump in front of the camera when he needed to, since he was both the director and an actor in this movie.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Martin Sheen actually didn't think he should be in the role. He originally suggested either Michael Douglas or Mel Gibson.
Really?
Yeah, which I could see Michael Douglas.
Oh, absolutely. Mel Gibson?
Yeah. But Emilio had written the main character's role specifically for his father and refused to make the film if Martin did not take the part.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And this is the 7th time the father and son have worked together.
The 7th time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we wanted to put a pin in the conversation about Emilio Estevez's son, Martin Sheen's grandson. It turns out that Martin Sheen and Taylor, Emilio's son,
Right.
had actually driven through Spain a few years before and had seen all of the different points for the Camino.
Oh, no kidding.
And Emilio was just really inspired by their trip, and that's how the inspiration for the story came along.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, and so when they're in the morgue and the body is shown to Tom, right? And he has to react. It's supposed to be Daniel, but Emilio could not be directing the scene and be the character in the body bag simultaneously. And so as a substitute, Taylor got in the body bag.
No shit.
Martin Sheen's grandson. Martin was not told about the substitution, so when they unzip the body bag and show the body, that shock on his face is genuine.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
It's pretty intense, yeah.
Hell yeah, that is. Damn, Emilio, going method for your father.
Right?
I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, hey, hats off to Taylor also.
Yeah, right? And Martin Sheen did all his own stunts for the river scene.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I was actually
cool.
curious about that one.
Yeah.
Because that's actually a fun sequence, and I really like that we wake up the next morning with him just wrapped around his sleeping bag. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you know what? I feel like I would totally do something like that. And maybe not because I lost my shit, like in the river or whatever. I would just like to sleep along the river. I don't know. This whole movie the whole trek is just very inspiring, and it's something that I hope that I can accomplish at some point in my life before I'm 50.
Awesome. Well, I'll be right next to you and help you do that. I'm
yes.
So excited to do this track. And
oh yeah, I know you would actually. I knew you would enjoy the
definitely
potential opportunity to do this.
Yes. And along the way, Tom also meets this priest, the one who's wearing the yarmulke because he has a bad scar on his head, which I love this guy. And they run into each other a couple times on the trail. That's actually Matt Clark, who's Martin Sheen's best friend in real life.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And I didn't notice this, so I'm not sure if you did, but Jos, Sarah, and Jack represent, in order, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz.
No way. I definitely did not put that together at all.
Yeah, Jos is like the big lion because he doesn't have the courage or the willpower to stay healthy.
Right.
Sarah she kind of has no heart. And she's the one that has a lot of metal devices on her, like the iPod, the cell phone, etc.
Right.
And then Jack is found near stacks of hay and hasn't had an original thought in days.
Wow.
So I thought that was a great callback to our very first reviewer requested episode.
That is fucking fan-goddamn-tastic. How did you do it, Steve? How'd you do it?
I know, right?
How'd you do it? No, that's badass.
It was meant to be.
It really is. And wow.
Yeah.
That's blowing me away right now.
Right? And The Way Chapter 2 is in pre-production.
No way!
Yep. Way.
Oh my gosh. Hey! There's going to be a sequel?
There is. Tom receives Jack's best-selling book recounting their shared experience.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, a secret is revealed, and it goes from there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Were we privy to the secret, I wonder?
Me too. So hopefully that gets made, and we get to watch The Way Chapter 2 in the coming years.
That is really fucking cool. I'm very much on board with that one.
Me too. So thank you so much, Steve, for that recommendation. It was a first watch for both of us, which is always a nice little gamble on this show.
Absolutely.
I'm glad it turned out well.
It did, indeed. Very inspiring. And I'm curious, Steve, have you walked the way?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Let us know in a comment or a DM or anything, because if you have or have not, you better join us in the next 10 years because we gonna do this shit.
That's right. And if you want to watch The Way for some inspiration as well, you can rent it on most streaming platforms.
That's how I did it.
Nice. All
Yes.
right. I think it's time to discuss our second reviewer-requested pick this week.
I think you're right.
All right, John, take it away.
I will blast off with this one since we are going to be discussing rockets and stuff like that. I'm very excited about this pick, actually. It comes at a very awesome time in my life. Coincidentally, after our Disney cruise, Amy and I went to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, spent a day there and saw a lot of really awesome NASA stuff. And we toured the astronaut training facility, which was absolutely mind-blowing. If you're following me on my personal Instagram account, I've been posting stuff all over my stories. I'm going to have to just do a couple of posts of all the NASA pictures that I took. But I'm going to finally talk about the movie that I chose out of the list that Clarissa sent us. Clarissa sent us a lot of great choices. Catch Me If You Can was one. Snatch was another. Captain Ron, which is a movie that I have actually not seen, but it's on my now to-watch list. Interstellar, which is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. Les Mis, the musical version, Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe. I didn't hate that movie. I know a lot of people hated it because of Russell Crowe. And then the seventh was The Greatest Showman, which, V, I introduced you to last summer and you fell in love with. But I chose Clarissa's first choice of a film from 1999. This movie is based on a book called Rocket Boys by Homer H. Hickam Jr. The screenplay is written by Lewis Collick, and the film is directed by Joe Johnston. We will discuss Joe Johnston's career very shortly here. This film is titled October Sky. I have not seen this movie, I think, since theaters. I might have watched it one other time when it first came out on video or DVD, but I did not remember a lot of this movie, so it was really great to revisit this. So Clarissa, thank you for choosing October Sky, and I'm very glad that I went with it. This film stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Chris Cooper, Laura Dern, Chris Owen, William Scott Lee, Chad Lindbergh, Natalie Canadre, Chris Ellis, and a whole handful of other people. This film is set in 1957, begins on October 4th of 1957, which was the day that Russia launched Sputnik into space. Now, the first satellite in space, I'm sure we all know of that. But just like in The Iron Giant, this movie is centered kind of around Sputnik. So one night on, I believe it's October 5th in the film, the next day after the launch of Sputnik, this town of Coalwood, this very small town in West Virginia, a coal mining town also, decides that they're going to look up in the sky based off the news. If you look up in the sky in a very dark night, you'll actually be able to see Sputnik go way up over the Earth in orbit. I've done this several times, not necessarily with Sputnik, but with satellites and the ISS. I have the Skyview app on my phone, so I try to see where the ISS is every night that Amy and I walk the dogs, so that I might be able to look for it and see it fly overhead. When that does happen, I just get chills down my spine because it's just so incredible that you can see something so far away, just slowly gliding across the night sky. So everybody in Coalwood decides that they're going to look up. They see it. And Homer, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is very just completely awestruck and inspired. And he's unfortunately got a father that's very much about him joining him in the coal mines when he's old enough, when he graduates high school, because that's what he did. And, you know, it's a coal mining town, so you got to stick with your small town roots and be a coal miner and et cetera, et cetera. We've, all heard this, not necessarily trope, but this still does happen in life. Fathers expect a lot of things from their sons to follow in their footsteps, et cetera, et cetera. So one night at dinner, Homer decides that he's going to tell his parents that he's going to build a rocket. And this is in the midst of his brother is a football star at the local high school, and all his father wants him to do is get a scholarship so he can go play football in college and then, go be an NFL player and excel. But Homer, you're going to be a coal miner. Really kind of shitty, because now he's got Sputnik and he's got this fascination with space and rockets. And he thinks that he's just going to build one. So he does. He decides that he's going to start getting some information on how to get all the chemicals together to launch a rocket. Now, again, everybody is looking up when Sputnik is about to fly over. This was not only just a major moment in human history, but so many people, the Americans, Chinese, the Canadians, every other country in the world was really fucking worried about Russia having launched a satellite in space, because they were all terrified that this was going to be some way of privacy being lost, that the Russians were going to be spying on everybody and trying to get dirt on every country that they could. So when Homer says to his parents that he wants to build a rocket, they're both like, well, hang on a second. What the hell are you talking about? Sputnik is not a really great idea. Like, that's all they're ever going to achieve. But he starts to enlist some of his friends from school. Now, oddly enough, and I know movies do this all the time, there's one character in this movie that actually is the culmination of two real people that Homer knew as a child. We have Sherman Sears and Jimmy Odell Carroll. Both of those guys existed. They were friends of Homer Hickam. But for purposes in the cinematic world, they decided to combine them into one person and give him the name Sherman Odell, which is kind of cool.
Perfect.
But, yeah, so, they got the names out there, which was pretty awesome. And Sherman Odell is actually played by Chad Lindbergh. And as I was watching this movie, I was like, I know this face. I know this face. And then, of course, it dawned on me that he was Jesse in The Fast and the Furious. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So he was actually in another movie other than Fast and Furious, because I actually haven't seen him in anything in a very long time. And what's really cool is he was actually on Star Trek Picard. I don't think I had any days where I worked with him, though. It might have been on season 1, because I did season 2 and 3. But anyway, so he enlists, like I said, he enlists his friends. He also enlists Quentin, played by Chris Owen. You guys would recognize Chris Owen, absolutely. He is the one that sets Jim, Jason Biggs' character, and all his friends in American Pie off on the losing their virginity train at the party in the beginning of that movie, American Pie.
The Shermanator.
Yeah, exactly.
Funny enough, his name is Sherman in American Pie.
Is it seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Also, a couple other people in this film that I did want to mention. Ilya Baskin, he is a good actor. He's in Spider-Man 2. He is the the superintendent or manager of the building that Peter Parker lives in. And he's always asking him for the rent and stuff like that. I thought that was great. He actually becomes an ally for Homer because he's a welder. And the boys are really trying to figure out how they can make this rocket fly and how they can, get certain pieces put together. And Ilya plays a character named Ike, and Ike is the welder. So again, he becomes an ally. He starts to help the boys out by welding some stuff on, like washers and little pieces of metal that they need to keep the trajectory of the rockets from, firing off.
And that's the thing that I had to keep reminding myself when watching this movie. This was 1957. I grew up with model rockets where you just bought the kit.
Exactly.
And you assembled it, and then you push the button, and it fired off, and it has a little parachute to come back down. I used to fire them off in our school field. These boys were building them from scratch. They didn't have any plans, so they were full-on designing these rockets, and so this was very innovative what they were doing, and I always have to remind myself, this is 1957, and this is all new.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's one thing that I really like about this movie. We watch the progression of Homer just, I'm going to build a rocket. And then he goes to the library and he starts reading these books on rocket engineering and starts telling his teacher, Miss Riley, who's played by Laura Dern, fantastic role for her, by the way. She was so damn good in this movie. If you don't know her by name, Ellie Sattler in Jurassic Park. So we have that, of course, another reason to love this movie. So she's, of course, giving him different books and ideas and like, oh, there's a science fair coming up. You should definitely enter the science fair. You might be able to get a scholarship and go to college and all this stuff. And, of course, there's a lot of people in town that are being very naysay about it, including Homer's father, who is just not about it. But at the same time, there's still somewhat of like a light burning flame of support coming from John Hickam. Because at one point, they all find this field 8 miles or so away from town, because as they were shooting these rockets off, they were kind of just going in all directions and causing a little bit of mayhem. So John tells him, he's like, you're not going to be doing any of this in town. So what do? Oh, they find a place about 8 miles outside of town that's just a big piece of flat land near a forest. and they decide that they're going to use this as their testing facility for all the rockets that they're going to be building. And he goes to his father and he goes, hey, I need some cement so that I can have a little launch pad. And his dad's like, well, I don't really have anything for you. But before he does leave, he goes, but you know what? There was some cement that was left behind a few days ago. If you want it, it's yours. You just have to get it out there on your own. I ain't going to help you, that kind of thing. So, I liked the support coming from his father, but of course, there needs to be a villain, right? Not just the townsfolk, but there needs to be, I guess, for whatever reason. And this is actually a little bit more Hollywoodized than the actual story because John Hickam was a little bit more supportive than he's portrayed in the movie, on top of the fact that he was also a very intelligent human being. Homer, in his book, mentions the fact that his dad actually was quite the reader and just a very intelligent guy and really fun to talk to. And of course, in the movie, they don't really say a whole lot of words to each other because his father wants him to be a coal miner and he doesn't want to do that. But anyway, going back again to meeting Quentin. Quentin, played by Chris Owen, he's the school nerd, if you will, and everybody's like keeping their distance from him, but Homer decides that he actually might be of use and help out with what's going on. And I love the scene when he goes to have lunch with him and start talking to him, like the whole school like watches Homer go over there, and Quentin's just sitting there like, what are you doing over here? And then he sits down and everyone's like, oh my God, Homer's talking to Quentin. What is all of this about? And I just like that camaraderie that they build over time. It's not like one of those things where Homer's like, hey, help me with this, and then he never talks to him again. Like, they develop a really strong bond and friendship on top of this knowledge that they start learning from all these different books. And we find out Quentin is actually quite the mathematician as well. So when Homer's bringing him equations on figuring out speed and figuring out trajectory for all of these launches and stuff like that, Quentin's like, oh my gosh, yeah, you got this right. And at one point, Homer comes to Quentin in the middle of the night and is just like, I figured something out equation-wise, and I just need you to help me corroborate it. And lo and behold, Homer was correct. And that's another thing, like watching this movie, when he comes together with that equation, and it's like SA and SA squared, all that kind of stuff, and he's listing off what the S stands for and the A stands for and the squared. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Because, watching Oppenheimer, he's just like, it just looks like fucking gibberish. It's just like,
Right.
3 plus Z and X and Y and T and da-da-da. It's like, how is that a fucking equation? But it is, and that's another wonderful thing about NASA is, there's the equation for the black hole and the equation for relativity and gravity and all this other stuff. It's just mind-boggling. Now, there's a character in this movie named Leon Bolden. He ends up coming to this little patch of land where they're testing these rockets. And Leon ends up telling Homer after a really good test that he was once a fighter with the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen in World War II, and that if he needs any help with anything, to let him know. So he becomes another ally from the town for Homer and the Rocket Boys. And the Rocket Boys is the title of the book, like I had mentioned before. The real Homer wanted the movie to be called Rocket Boys, but the studio was like, nah, we're going to call it October Sky instead, which is still fine. October Sky really resonates because of the fact that October 5th was when they saw Sputnik fly over. 1957, oddly enough, my father was born 2 years to the day after Sputnik was seen flying over West Virginia, which is pretty cool.
Nice. The cool thing is October Sky is also an anagram of Rocket Boys. That's the one piece of trivia I ever knew about this movie, which I thought was
it was
really
interesting.
Cool.
I looked at it and I was like, Rocket Boys. Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I like that. That's cool. The town of Colwood, West Virginia, was actually a small town in Tennessee for the production of the movie. The movie ended up wrapping 11 days ahead of schedule, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. I think that's pretty badass. We'll get into the budget in a little bit. Jake Gyllenhaal was also 17 while making this movie, so he had to have a tutor on set. And it's so funny watching this movie. It was like 1999, this movie came out, and so did Donnie Darko, and I hated Donnie Darko. Was not a fan of Donnie Darko at all, but so many people loved it. And I remember thinking this was the movie that I liked Jake Gyllenhaal in, but after Donnie Darko, I didn't give him the time of day until Source Code came out. Like, I literally was like, I'm not going to watch another Gyllenhaal movie. And then we got Source Code, which was a pick of mine here several episodes ago.
That's right. And watching this movie again, I was just reminded of how talented Jake Gyllenhaal is. I know he and his sister have some pretty strong nepotism connections in the industry. However, he's one of those people who has proven himself time and time again for being very talented. He's such a great actor. I'm really excited to do an episode dedicated to him in the future. I know we've talked about that a little bit.
Yes.
I am just shocked that he's only ever received one Academy Award nomination in his career.
I know, yeah, it's pretty wild. Well, I'm sure he'll get another one, hopefully. Hopefully when Bradley Cooper stops making movies, maybe Jake Gyllenhaal will get him. That's not really saying much because Jake Gyllenhaal is far better than Bradley Cooper.
He is, but I don't think he's going to be getting a nomination this year for the remake of Roadhouse.
No, definitely not. I saw the trailer for that. It looked kind of
horrible.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the original, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe. The location where the boys were doing their rocket testing is still there in Tennessee, and in that section of the world, there's actually a shed and a replica of the launch pad. And on top of that, there's also a Rocket Boys festival that happens every year that Homer and most of the boys actually ended up attending for several decades, which was pretty awesome. Could you imagine, like, I'm going to go to the October Sky Festival, and there's the fucking Rocket Boys?
Oh, that's so cool.
So awesome. Now, there's an actor in this movie named Chris Ellis. He's the principal of the school that Laura Dern's character, Miss Riley's the teacher at, and where Homer attends with his friends, the Rocket Boys. Chris Ellis is very, very famous for being in mostly NASA-related movies. He is in Armageddon. He is also all over From the Earth to the Moon, which is really awesome. And he is in Apollo 13. So for whatever reason, he just has that face. Really awesome to always see him show up. He's also in one of the Transformers films, and he's just had a very, very long career. But every time I see him watching a movie having to do with space, over the course of the 90s and early 2000s, Chris Ellis was there in one way or another. I thought that was pretty cool that he's in this movie as the principal and so one of the naysayers, in town.
Yeah, how awesome would it be to have maybe he has a big passion for space, right? And he's like, I'm going to try to get in every single space-related movie I can.
That would be awesome, and he's doing a great job. I love him. I think he's a great actor.
Yeah, me too.
This movie involved 2,000 extras, which is pretty intense over the course of, the entire shoot. This was also Jake Gyllenhaal's first leading role, so congratulations to Jake Gyllenhaal for jumping into this movie and really just bringing it home.
He absolutely did. I like that he wasn't overacting. He seemed very natural, and there's a lot of subtlety to his performance. I thought he did really well with. He's been a great actor ever since he was a kid, clearly.
Hell yeah.
Yes, I loved this movie. I've been a fan of it ever since I was a kid as well. I didn't watch it in theaters, but I watched it shortly afterwards. I believe I was still in high school when I first watched this movie, and everything about it, I think, is really well executed. There's very authentic time period setup where
yes,
the clothes, the cars, how people behave, that classic father figure of being very stoic and completely non-emotive and very traditionalist in a lot of ways, and the nerds being completely exiled in high school, right?
Right.
I thought it was all really well done without being cliche, and
yes,
that's really hard to do, that nuance, as we always talk about, towing that line of being really good at something without overdoing it in a movie, right? And that applies
Absolutely.
to so many aspects of movies that we talk about. And how crucial it is that a teacher supports you. Laura Dern is my favorite part of this whole movie. She's so fantastic in it, and I loved her performance, and she just was the perfect casting choice for this, I think.
Oh, I completely agree. That's another thing with the movie. I believe the casting was just great. Like everybody.
Oh, Chris
like you said,
Cooper is his dad. So perfect.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Again, and maybe this would be nominated for an Oscar for Best Casting, since that is now a freaking nope. If you think that is a wonderful idea to have as an Oscar category, I don't know what to tell you.
My problem with that. My fear is that very quickly that's going to devolve to a substitute and honorable mention for Best Actor and Best Actress.
Right. Yeah, I know.
How are they going to differentiate? What is the classification for Best Casting?
Exactly. I'm completely with you on that 100%. And it seems that there's a large group of people out there that completely disagree with this as being a category. Before the stunt category even has come about. Yes, that's
what has really pissed me off, and that is a lot has to do with the fact that there are not many stunt people in the Academy as members. And don't get us wrong, I know I speak for both of us. We talk very often about how much we love casting directors when they get it right, and how much we would have loved being casting directors, and how much fun that must be. And we talk about alternate universes of who else could play this role. We love casting directors.
Definitely.
It's just a huge gray area in terms of how you can award someone for it.
I completely agree. Yeah, and then soon, there's going to be like an Oscar for Best Ensemble Cast, and it's like, come on,
Box
now.
office award, like the stupid Golden Globes.
Let's create. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but at the same time. The casting in this movie is fantastic, and like I had mentioned before, the writer that adapted the book, and I love to say that I would have loved to have read the book before. I'm likely to buy this book because I gotta read it and see what's left out. The writer of this movie, Lewis Colick, he's written some good ones. A few of them I really enjoy, and I wonder if you've seen them. Now, Bulletproof with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans. Pretty entertaining movie from the 90s.
I'm not an Adam Sandler fan, so I never saw it.
Oh, that's right. You're not. He was the writer on Ghosts of Mississippi, starring James Woods, which is a really intense movie with Whoopi Goldberg as well, Virginia Madsen, and Alec Baldwin, directed by Rob Reiner. Mm-hmm. He also wrote Domestic Disturbance with John Travolta. Never saw that one. But then they worked together a few years later when he wrote Ladder 49 with Joaquin Phoenix and John Travolta. That is a really good movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good as Backdraft, but it is a good movie.
Sure. I guess I wasn't very big on Backdraft. I loved the whole experience at Universal Studios, though. I wish they never took that out. That was such a badass thing.
It was.
And then most recently, Lewis Colick has written the film directed by Eva Longoria about the spicy Cheetos Flamin' Hot, which is a very entertaining movie on Hulu and I believe Disney Plus as well. So if you have not seen Flamin' Hot, check that one out. It's very, very entertaining.
You know what's crazy is I was visiting my parents last week, and my mother's cleaning out the house a bit, and she gives me a lot of books that they don't use anymore because I have a used bookstore that I love to go to, and I get store credit for bringing in books. Right. And so she gave me a box of books last week, and October Sky was in that box.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think you got to bring that for me the next time you come over.
It's definitely a book that I need to give to you, for sure.
That is awesome. Hell yeah.
Right after I read
it. Of course, yes. Do read it first. Now, the director of this movie, Joe Johnston, incredible career. I'm not going to name a few of the movies because, V, you have a pick of his coming up, so I'm just going to list a few of these that I am a big fan of. One of them in particular is your pick very soon, so I'm not going to mention it.
Thank you,
it's from 1991.
You.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Johnston, his first directorial debut, fantastic movie, still a bit mind-boggling how it was made. Rick Moranis in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That was his first movie?
That was his first directorial, yeah.
What a badass.
I know. He did a lot of visual effects, illustrations, and designs for Star Wars A New Hope.
Oh, shit.
Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Return of the Jedi before he jumped into directing. So he's definitely a badass.
Yeah, I had no idea about his pre-director work. That's awesome.
Yeah, really, really awesome. He also directed the live action turned into animation, then turned back into live action, starring Macaulay Culkin and Christopher Lloyd and Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Stewart, The Page Master. Wonderful flick. He directed this movie in 1999. He also, I guess, was a director on The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, which were like straight-to-video movies. I didn't even know those existed.
I thought that was a series.
It might have been a series of Oh, no. Well, yeah, The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones was a series from 2002 to 2008. But then in 1999, there was a straight-to-video Young Indiana Jones movie called Spring Break Adventure.
And Sean Patrick Flannery played the Young Indiana Jones because River Phoenix had died.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy. In 2001, Joe Johnston brought us the third and should have been final Jurassic Park film. 2010, he jumped into horror and creature features with Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, and Eva Green in The Wolfman, which I think is actually a pretty badass movie. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I did.
I really liked both the werewolf movies in the late 90s, early 2000s. So there's The Wolfman.
I knew you liked Van Helsing.
No, God, no. No. There's The Wolfman with Benicio, and then there's Wolf with Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson.
Oh, I never saw Wolf.
Oh, we need to do a double feature then.
Yeah, I guess we do. And then the last one that I will mention, other than October Sky, in 2011, and this actually blew me away, because I did not know that he directed this, and it kind of... I don't want to say it sucks that he directed this, because I've tried to watch this movie 3 different times, once in theaters, and I have fallen asleep every time. Captain America: The First Avenger.
Okay, I don't I don't
Yeah,
know why you
exactly.
fall asleep. What are you talking about?
I don't know why either. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you why I fall asleep. For whatever reason, I don't know. It just didn't grab me.
Okay.
But I did watch it again when I did my Marvel summer, and I liked it. So it was actually really cool to discover that Joe Johnston was the director on a Marvel movie. Mm-hmm. Now, October Sky came out on February 19th of 1999, so pretty early in 1999. This was not nominated for any Oscars or anything like that because I believe it came out too early in the year and might have been missed. Ho-ho!
Oh, I agree. And why the hell didn't they release it in October?
I don't know. Real missed opportunity there. Could have been released in 1998 in October, and they might have actually gotten a little bit more Academy nods.
No, it's
You never
named
know.
October Sky. It sells itself if you release it in October. What the hell are
Totally.
they thinking?
I don't know. I'm wondering maybe Joe Johnston just didn't have a say, and they were like, fuck it, we're going to release it in February. Who knows?
Guess.
Yeah, because it was done filming in April of 1998, 11 days ahead of schedule, so they could have had this movie out in October of that year.
Absolutely. There's hardly any visual effects, if any visual effects
exactly.
in this movie.
Yeah.
They just
All
needed to
practical.
edit it. Yeah.
Yeah. The movie had a $25 million budget.
Well, I guess because of all the period pieces, maybe, and that's all
what I'm
that
thinking.
mine stuff was pretty intense too. That they had to do.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, the domestic box office was $32.5 million.
Really, I thought this was so much more popular.
I believe it grew legs when it was released on video and DVD because I did see this movie in theaters. My dad was adamant about seeing this movie in theaters. So we went and we all loved it. And of course, when I was watching it just the other night and putting on my Instagram that I was watching it, so many people replied, love that movie, such a great movie, so underrated. And I'm like, well, we're doing it on the podcast. So hopefully our listeners that have never heard of this movie will watch this movie and fall in love with it like I did all over again.
Absolutely. I felt the exact same way because I too hadn't seen it in quite a few years.
Yeah, so again, Clarissa, thank you very much for this choice. Going back into the box office, worldwide box office was also heartbreaking at $34.6 million. Really did not do very well at all. But that doesn't really mean a whole lot because everybody in this movie has gone on to be in so many more movies.
Yeah.
Joe Johnston continued to direct and still does. His last movie was atrocious, but it is what it is. I didn't mention it, but it's the Nutcracker in the Four Realms. It was so awful. My wife loved it, but I didn't. I remember taking her to see it at the El Capitan, and she got all nutcrackered out. It's her favorite ballet, and she wanted to see what the movie was about. And she was like, I even liked Keira Knightley in it. I'm like, okay. So anyway, jumping into the year of 1999. I have done the year 1999. I did it for episode 56 when we did our Disney double feature, the Double Ds. I did Tarzan, so I discussed some of the movies that came out that year. But that was a long time ago, so I'm here to refresh your memory of the year 1999. V, what was the highest grossing film of 1999? Franchise movie, it was the fourth, but really the first. And now it's going to be re-released for a 25-year anniversary. It's got a really awesome...
Oh, it's The Phantom Menace.
There it is, The Phantom Menace. And I was going to say it's got a really awesome character named Jar Jar Binks. No, I'm kidding.
No, it doesn't. We hate that movie.
But it does have Jar Jar Binks in it, and yes, I'm not a big fan. But I might check it out in theaters. I might, because the podcast race... I do that all the time. The pod racing scene is awesome. So
That's fantastic.
I mean, this is a podcast race. We are up against other podcasts here. Second highest grossing film, a director that exploded onto the scene with this movie. Young actor, played the lead role. Bruce Willis is in it. The twist was incredible.
Oh, Haley Joel Osment, M. Night Shyamalan, The Sixth Sense.
Indeed. Also, who played his mother? Toni
Collette, who deserved
yeah.
a fucking Oscar for that movie.
That and Hereditary, right?
Oh, she has deserved, I think, 3 Oscars at this point. She's so good.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Yes, and her not getting an Oscar nomination for Hereditary is my villain origin story.
I love it. The third film is a franchise movie, but it is the sequel. We discussed it actually when we were talking about, well, we didn't discuss this movie, but we were discussing this franchise a little bit when we were doing Tropic Thunder. This was The Spy Who Shagged Me, the Austin Powers sequel. I thought that movie was pretty funny. I like all 3 of them. Goldmember in particular. I know you don't like, I don't think you like Goldmember or any of the Austin Powers movies.
I loved the first 2. I did not think Goldmember was funny. I haven't seen those films in like 20 years, though. I have no idea if they hold up.
I don't either. And, maybe that'd be an experiment. Like try and anyway. Well, who knows?
It seems like it's probably very 90s humor.
Probably, yeah. Very sexual 90s. The fourth highest grossing film was Toy Story 2. Number 5, Matrix. Number 6, my pick for episode 56, Tarzan. Number 7, Big Daddy. Number 8, The Mummy. Number 9, Runaway Bride. Number 10, a movie that I only recently saw, I think in the last 15 years, but had one of the greatest marketing campaigns of any independent movie, The Blair Witch Project.
Yes, it absolutely did have a just brilliant marketing campaign.
It really did. Number 12 was The World Is Not Enough, Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, God, that was such a shit movie. I love Pierce Brosnan and James Bond, but that movie was not good. Okay, Denise Richards
Yes.
plays a nuclear scientist.
Yes, she does.
That's so ridiculous.
She was incredible. No, not really. Number 17 was American Pie, as we were just discussing not too long ago. Number 19, Shakespeare in Love. Number 20, Sleepy Hollow. Number 21, The Haunting with Liam Neeson, Owen Wilson, and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I love that movie. Number 26, Deep Blue Sea. Number 27, American Beauty, which I did not like at all. Number 28, Vee, A Pick of Yours, The Thomas Crown Affair. Number 29, Stuart Little. Number 30, Blue Streak. Number 31, Green Mile. Number 32, Bowfinger, which is a great movie about independent filmmaking. Number 34 was Bone Collector. 35, She's All That.
Hey, the trope where if you wear glasses, you're ugly, and if you take them off, you're automatically beautiful.
Indeed. I thought Rachel Leigh Cook was pretty hot with the glasses, though.
Yeah, the insinuation that people are ugly because they're wearing glasses is insulting.
I completely agree. The 40th highest grossing film, Stanley Kubrick's last directorial, starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, Eyes Wide Shut. Number 45, You've Got Mail. Number 46, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, which will be in theaters this summer as an anniversary re-release. I cannot wait to see it in theaters.
Blame Canada!
Blame Canada! Always blame Canada. Number 49, Prince of Egypt, a great spiritual animated documentary, animated film with wonderful soundtrack.
Never saw it.
Oh, it's pretty good, regardless if you believe in the Bible or not. It's a great story. It's a great fantasy novel. Number 52, Cruel Intentions. 53, 10 Things I Hate About You. 56, Fight Club. 58 was The Thin Red Line. Number 59, A Bug's Life. Number 62, Mickey Blue Eyes. Number 67, Lake Placid. Number 78, Blast from the Past, a pick that will very likely be on this podcast of mine. Number 85, Vee, A Pick of Yours, that we just discussed during this episode, Iron Giant.
Early pick of mine.
Indeed. And number 94, another pick of yours, Galaxy Quest.
And you paired it with True Lies.
Indeed, I did. That's the truth. That ain't no lie. Oh! And the 66th highest grossing film of 1999, Clarissa LeVon's pick, and now my pick, of October Sky.
Nice.
Yeah, 1999 was a fantastic year.
It really was. Holy shit. There's a lot of future
movies.
picks on that list.
Oh, yeah, and past picks as well from episodes past. So again, Clarissa, thank you very much for your list. Thank you for bringing this movie back into both of our lives. Like I had said earlier, it really came at the right time because not only was I just at NASA in Houston, I am in the middle of watching From the Earth to the Moon right now, and I'm about to start Carrying the Fire, which is Michael Collins' autobiography of his time at NASA. So, killer timing.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having us revisit this movie. We both hadn't seen it in quite some time.
Hell yeah. Love it.
And now Clarissa and Steve are going to be sent very super special glitter stickers of Movies You Missed podcasts.
Super special.
For anyone who writes a review of our podcast on Apple Podcasts app, you get a sticker. Our winners of the reviewer requested episode get special edition stickers.
Oh, yeah.
And where can you watch October Sky, John?
You can watch October Sky on just about any streaming service. It's $3.99 to rent, which is what I did. I'm just very upset that I don't own this movie, so
yeah,
I will have to own it soon, definitely. Now, Vee, curious, would you watch The Way with your grandmother?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a very family-friendly film. It dives in a lot about family relationships. It's definitely good for, I think, anybody teenage and above.
Yeah, I agree.
And John, would you watch October Sky with your grandma?
I would have loved to. I'm not... Kind of sucks that we didn't get the chance to do that, but I absolutely would have.
It feels in the line with Remember the Titans.
Yes, a little bit.
Very family-friendly, good message.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us for this reviewer-requested episode. I am extremely excited for next week's picks. We're going medieval. We're going historical. We're going true story. Again.
That's true.
Oh, truth all over the place. V, what film are you choosing from the medieval era?
I chose the film that introduced me to Cate Blanchett
Oh.
and Daniel Craig.
Oh.
This is Elizabeth.
Hey, I've never seen it. I'm very excited.
I'm so excited to introduce you to this movie. Unfortunately, it's not streaming on any service, but you can rent it.
I shall do that.
And John, what medieval movie did you choose?
I chose a pretty badass 3-hour-long epic starring and directed by Mel Gibson, written by Randall Wallace. This is Braveheart.
You're using a very loose definition of true story in that.
Oh, yeah. It's inspired by.
Yes.
It's inspired by.
God, I haven't seen that movie in years. It's so good. I love the score so much.
Oh, hell yeah. Magnificent. I watched it last year with a pour of single malt scotch, which is how I will watch it again. I have the 4K at home. It's one of the best looking and best sounding 4Ks that I have. This movie is a masterpiece in every sense of the word. Can't wait for you to revisit it, V.
Absolutely, but both of these films are not family friendly at all. They are brutal.
No.
They are very intense and violent. Highly recommend it for any adults listening, though.
Absolutely. You can watch Braveheart on Peacock or Paramount Plus, or you can rent it on Apple and Amazon Prime. Well, that is episode 96. We are getting closer and closer to our 100th episode. Can't wait to jump into that one. We're also getting closer and closer to the Oscars. So as we like to sign off here, everybody, please do rate, review, subscribe, follow us on all socials, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Also, if you do leave us a review on Apple, hopefully it's a 5-star review, you will get a sticker and you'll be thrown into the hat for the next reviewer requested episode.
That's right.
And they're movies.
Love
they're
these
all
episodes.
movies.
Yes.
Me too. They're
all
not
movies.
TV series.
I'm still going to
Movies.
make you watch Lonesome Dove at some point, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be 20 years from now and be like, you're still going to watch Lonesome Dove. I'm like, yeah, I will, but I probably never will.
So
But I
good,
probably
though.
will at some point. Still getting into the love for Westerns over here.
That's right.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you're reintroduced to 2 wonderful movies that you've either seen or haven't seen and now have 2 more to add to your watch list. So before next week, we always do like to sign off here at Movies You Missed Podcast with film is a form of art, and in art, all opinions are valid, except if you think.
Feel-good movies are cringe.
All right. Some of them are, though.
Thanks again, Clarissa and Steve. We really appreciate not only your support, but also your participation in this episode.
Hell yeah.
We hope we did your movies justice.
As do I. See you next week. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.